Bola Ahmed Tinubu from drug lord to presidential candidate. And I want us to watch this together. It's 30 minutes, half an hour, but it's very, very interesting. It tells the story of Tinubu and why we shouldn't vote for him. Or why we should, depending on some people.
Take away from their recruitment source. What they will eat? Cassava, agbado, corn.
Well, and I have to say, Tinubu's sound effect has been crazy, man. The cassava gari, the roasted corn, like everything has been jokes. But guys, we need to be serious about this election, man. Enough jokes. We've had enough jokes, and we need to be serious about choosing the right candidate. So yeah, let's get into the documentary.
In the morning, yam in the afternoon. It's growing here. You create demand and consumption.
So this is the documentary Bola Ahmed Tinubu from drug lord to presidential candidate, and it looks at Tinubu's rise basically from a lowly accountant in the US to a Nigerian presidential candidate and one of the richest men in Nigeria today.
On October 11, 1990, federal agents from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration knocked on the front door of 460 Taft Place in the city of Gary, Indiana. Once a booming steel town with a population approaching 180,000 in 1960, Gary was one of a number of cities and towns across the U.S. suffering from severe population loss, among other adverse effects of overseas competition on their mainstay industries. From having over 30,000 employees at its peak in 1970, the city's main employer, U.S. Steel Gary Works, retained just 6,000 employees in.
Let me know if you guys can hear the audio clearly in the chats. If you have any issues with the audio, let me know. But yeah, man, this documentary is crazy, man. Let's watch.
1990. Under these circumstances,
shout out to David Undeyin for this documentary, West African Weekly. Make sure to give them a subscribe and a follow.
This city and its 77% African American population were witnessing explosive growth in one of the only industries guaranteed to boom under such difficult circumstances. 42-year-old Lee Andrew Edwards was one of the entrepreneurs who had found a place in the heroin trafficking business, and by all accounts, he had done very well for himself. With the proceeds from his illegal business, he had bought 2 residential homes, including 460 Taft Place, an apartment building, a liquor store, and a new car, all paid for with cash. Now, according to court records from the United States Court of Appeals 7th Circuit, the DEA agents arrived at the property to execute a search warrant after a 7-month FBI investigation involving Edwards' brother, Jimmy, had implicated him as the narcotics kingpin of Gary. Edwards did not open the door for the agents, who were forced to break into the house. He then fired 3 gunshots at them, after which he surrendered. DEA agents found weapons including a carbine rifle, thousands of dollars in cash, drug prepping equipment including a triple beam scale, and several grams of cocaine and heroin powder in the house.
Damn.
He was later sentenced to life in prison, but not before something about his business operation came.
This is real life narcos, man. Real life Pablo Escobar shit.
To the fore. Federal investigators had determined that Edwards' heroin supply came from a Nigerian drug dealer in Chicago called Abiodun Agbele.
Gang.
Abiodun had earlier agreed to work for the feds in exchange for lighter sentencing, and as part of the plea deal, he revealed everything he knew about the heroin trade in Chicago. Located at the junction of 4 states with a combined population exceeding 27 million at the time, Chicago was a key trafficking hub in the American heroin trade, and as it turned out, the wholesale trade of an especially potent form of heroin from Southeast Asia in 1990 Chicago was controlled by Nigerian criminal gangs. The following excerpt is taken from the January 2001 Deloitte Drug Threat Assessment, published by the U.S. Justice Department's National Drug Intelligence Center. Nigerian criminal groups are responsible for wholesale distribution of most of the SEA heroin shipped into Chicago. SEA heroin, which is 80 to 90% pure, is being sold by Nigerian traffickers for $80,000 to $110,000 per kilogram.
Jesus.
Wholesalers in Chicago usually sell heroin without cutting it to minimize.
Naija no dey carry last. Naija no dey carry last. What? I didn't even know that heroin is produced in Nigeria. Talking of this amount of kilos.
Bombocat!
Hey, this is spicy.
Minimize the handling of the product and their exposure to law enforcement. Now, Agbele himself was no criminal mastermind, however. As he testified under oath, that honor belonged to a man who went by the name of Adegboyega Moise Akonde, who was apparently his uncle.
Voila.
Shortly after Agbele's arrival in the US, Akonde had taken him under his wing and showed him the ropes of wholesale heroin trafficking. When Akonde returned to Nigeria in mid-1990, Agbele was left in charge of selling regular heroin shipments from Nigeria to Lee Edwards and delivering the profits to his uncle. In the meantime, the Nigerian-led heroin trade in Chicago fed an addiction epidemic that became so bad that it changed local health and law enforcement practices. For the first time, providing addicts with free access to safe syringes and needles to ensure that they did not share them and possibly spread HIV became a core focus of public health policy.
Bro, Nigerians were shipping in so much drugs that they had to change the health and safety procedures in America.
Bombocat!
Bro.
Bruh.
This is crazy, fam. This is completely insane.
In other words, SEA heroin from Nigeria was so potent and addictive that public health policy in Chicago shifted away from trying to make heroin addicts stop using altogether to merely ensuring that they used safely. A notable organization that did such outreach work with heroin addicts was the Chicago Recovery Alliance. While researching this story, I reached out to its current executive director, John Werning, to get a sense of how the heroin epidemic changed law enforcement practices from 1990s to date in Chicago. And his comments were very predictably grim. He said, heroin, of course, has consequences, but I think we would probably say that the more major impact is the draconian laws around how heroin was policed. I think that it's pretty well established that there was a very specific targeting of folks who use drugs generally, but also heroin in particular, and it was mostly targeted toward the policing of Black and brown communities.
Okay.
That's not specific to Chicago. I think that's across the nation. But just in general, I think there was a lack of compassion by government entities to give people access to the treatment that they need, or non-violent drug possession and mandatory minimum sentencing. I mean, there's a ton of different aspects of this that absolutely eviscerated populations, particularly marginalized populations in Chicago, and that's probably the advocate's view on this. Now, whether or not that can be translated into a comment about the international drug trade, and specifically from, you said, Nigeria, I just don't know. But that's definitely more like domestic politics than international. Now, while all of this is going on, there was an interesting subplot taking place in the background. An accountant living in the Chicago area who worked for Mobil Oil Nigeria with a declared
the man of the year. Bruh.
Bruh.
Bro, young Tinubu was kind of sexy though. Young Tinubu was kind of sexy, not gonna lie. Pause.
Bombocat!
But young Tinubu was kind of sexy. Look at my man in the pro.
monthly income of $2,400, had just deposited over $1.4 million in the bank. He had no known source of income apart from his day job, but he had become friends with Akonde and Agbele, discovering one key
See magic. My God, that's the kind of grace I'm looking for. It was earning $2,400 a month, and he magically deposited 1.6 million in the bank. That's why they say you should save. Don't go and party, save your money.
piece of information in the process. Drug dealers need accountants too.
Facts.
Soon, he will find himself holding and wiring money on behalf of a Nigerian heroin gang in Chicago. Fast forward a little bit to January 1992, and he will find himself the subject of a US federal investigation.
Voila.
Fast forward a bit further in the same year, and he would successfully run for office in Nigeria as a senator for Lagos West. Then,
In the same year. He ran for office in the same year. The same year of his investigation, he ran for office.
Jesus is Lord.
Omo. Information is really.
another politician, also said to have ties to international drug trafficking, would successfully run for president in Nigeria on a controversial all-Muslim ticket in 1993.
Big conspiracy.
The election will be annulled, the politician will be jailed, and ultimately another Nigerian military coup will take place in 1994. This accountant will find himself exiled and working with the National Democratic Coalition, NADECO, to unseat a kleptocrat military dictator. Then the dictator would unexpectedly drop dead one day in 1998, followed in quick succession by the jailed politician with the alleged drug links. This accountant would return to Nigeria a hero and successfully run for governor of Lagos in 1999. The kleptocrat
Definitely, the sound effects have started. This was. Of course, they've started, fam. Let's enjoy this documentary, please. This is a very serious documentary about how somebody rose from an accountant, from a lowly accountant to a presidential candidate in Nigeria, and it did this. Let's find out how he did it. But let's find out how he did it. Let's continue.
dictator's erstwhile bagman, who helped launder over $4 billion, will become the accountant's new best friend. As an erstwhile Chicago drug gang's loader, will start his new lifetime mission of capturing Africa's largest subnational economy and turning it into his personal fiefdom. A major political opponent of the accountant will end up strangled to death in his bedroom 10 months to
Fear accountants, my guy.
an election which his chosen candidate would go on to win. Said opponent's son would subsequently
Bro, this shit is crazy. Did he really? I don't know. I didn't know about this. Maybe I was too young for this shit. But did he really kill? Did the guy really die?
political opponent of the accountant would end up strangled to death in his bedroom 10 months to an election which his chosen candidate would go on to win. Said opponent's son would subsequently be offered a
Is this true? Like the guy just died before the election, and Fashola won, and nobody said anything about it. We just let it slide. Did that really happen?
cushy job working for that candidate. He would accept the offer. And
And Funshaw Williams was very, very popular, you know. I remember Funshaw Williams, he built a hospital in my school that year. I think. Was it him or his son? Yeah, but Funshaw Williams was very, very popular. And he just died mysteriously before the election. And Nigerians just moved on.
if you're already struggling to follow this unlikely sequence of events, don't worry, it gets worse. A US district court would seem like an odd place to begin this story, but this is no ordinary story. The main character in this
Not
story
at
is
all.
an individual whose entire existence is as puzzlingly mysterious as it is loud and public. For at least 30 years, Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been at or near the grinding phase of frontline politics in Nigeria. Yet the peak 1 inch below the surface reveals just how little is actually
Bro, this guy needs to go and retire, man. I can't even lie. Like, look at how old he is, fam. This guy looks older than my grandpa, fam. And my grandpa is old. What the hell? What more do you want? You know, Shelley. What are you looking for? Hey, God.
known about this man, who some say is Nigeria's president in waiting. First of all, there is the age controversy. How old is the man really?
I beg, how old is Tinubu? Please let me know in the chat. Who knows Tinubu's real age? Because
What is his real date of birth? Short answer, no one actually knows. Like many Nigerians born into the less than auspicious circumstances that characterize
86.
Bruh.
86. Can you verify that information? 86. Where do you get your inflated numbers from, please? What did you add in this sim? Tony, 86. Please stop Stop lying on the man. It's still a young and agile man.
Characterized his childhood in Iragbiji in Osun State, southwestern Nigeria, he himself may not even know. Similar controversy exists around what his actual name is. A popular theory is that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is an identity that he transitioned into at some point after moving to Lagos to live with his surrogate mother, Alaja Abibatu.
They said it's not his real mom, but they look alike a bit. Like that mouth, they have that same longer throat mouth. Iyaloja.
Ogaji. The only thing every version of his life story has in common is that for the first 2 decades or so, he was apparently invisible and unmemorable. There are no childhood friends, there are no classmates, there are no neighbors, there are no colleagues that remember him.
Sounds like a serial killer origin story.
Sometime in the mid-1970s, however, he somehow materialized at the international airport in Lagos, holding a passport with a US visa and a one-way ticket to Chicago in hand. From his arrival in Chicago in 1975, his story then becomes easier to track and verify. So what do we know about this guy? We know that he spent 2 years gaining an associate degree at Richard J. Daley College in Chicago. From there, he proceeded on to Chicago State University, where he studied accounting, completing his bachelor's degree in 1979. Subsequently, his story appeared straightforward and prosaic. He got a job as an accountant at Mobil Oil Nigeria Limited in Fairfax, Virginia, got married to Oluremi, went on to have 3 kids with her, well, after 3 fruitful indiscretions, shall we say. In a 2016 interview,
Oluremi is actually fine though, that one I can't lie. He tried with that one, I can't lie, he tried.
Interview with the news, Tinubu claimed that his break into the financial big
Bro, this shit was so funny when I saw it.
time came at the Big Four consultancy firm Deloitte, where he supposedly received an $850,000 bonus as a result of his work on a single on-site engagement at the Saudi state-owned oil firm Saudi Aramco. Now, for anyone with even a passing knowledge of corporate consultancy pay, the categorical dishonesty in this claim needs no explanation.
Bro,
For everyone else,
an 850k bonus. An 850k bonus in the 90s. That is such a lie. 850k, to put that in context, because this is an accounting firm. To put that in context, I work at an accounting firm. It's not Deloitte, but it's on the same level as Deloitte. And they can, what we pay a partner today per year is 850k, and they'll just give that to a regular auditor and accountant as a bonus. Because of what? Because of what?
here is a current breakdown of the maximum possible amount that a partner, which is the highest attainable position, can realistically expect to earn at Deloitte USA. Bear in mind that the time period
Tony, is that possible in Big Four? It's not possible at all, my brother. It's not possible. 850k bonus. What did you do? We rarely get clients that will pay 850k. Talk less of, so do not give that. Contribute the whole firm.
in question was sometime in the mid-1980s. So $850,000 adjusted for the roughly 2.74% annual inflation rate over the intervening 37 years comes to about $2.3 million in today's money. And even more incredibly, Tinubu claimed that he was awarded such a bonus and he was essentially less than 5 years into his career as an accountant, never mind making partner. Now, while the interview in question contains several other giant fibs, this particular one stands out because it is the first time in the Tinubu story where he himself...
Bro, 850k before taxes. My salaries were also being paid into the bank and I was not touching them. At the time, my salary deposit in the bank had risen to about $1.8 million. Bruh. From working. Guys, if they're not paying you above $1 million, I'm not taking that job. Does Tinubu have 2 heads? Does Tinubu have two heads? See, employers seeing this shit. They gave somebody 850k bonus. He was able to save over $1.8 million from his good work. If you're not going to do that for me, I'm not working for you anymore. If you're not willing to pay me over 850k in bonuses, I'm not working for anybody anymore. I quit. Fuck it. What the fuck? Wow. This is crazy.
Acknowledges and tries to explain the fact that he once had a lot more money than a simple accountant working a 9-to-5 consultancy job.
Guys, get your kids to study account. If this was not a sign that you should enter the accounting profession, I don't know what else you are looking for. Roko, why are you calling me? Roko, why are you calling me? I'm on live. I'm on live. What's up?
You're live. Look alive.
Oh, shout out to Roko. I don't know why Roko is calling me. What's up?
Where you there? Where you there?
I'm on live. I'm doing my live stream now.
Oh, sorry, bro. Sorry.
What's up now? Okay, I don't know why Roko is calling me. But yeah, if this was not a sign that you should go into accounting, then I don't know what you're talking about. If he was still there, he would probably earn as much as Apple CEO now, for sure. He will probably earn as much as Apple CEO. But let's watch.
Could reasonably account for at that point in his career. I should keep that in mind because this becomes more important later on in the story. Now, in any case, one doesn't need an economic study or a Glassdoor salary survey to establish that Tinubu was blatantly lying about where the supposed $1.8 million sitting in his account came from. A document whose existence has long been teased and rumored but never quite properly dissected in public domain tells us all that we need to know. This document, which was obtained from the U.S. District Court of the Northern District of Illinois Eastern Division,
Let me see why Roko is
contains damning
messaging me.
information that Tinubu himself has spent past 30 years trying to suppress, undermine, and ignore. This document contains comprehensive case files of a federal case from July 1993 containing clear and incontrovertible evidence that Bola Ahmed Tinubu was once, in fact, a bagman, handling and laundering proceeds of heroin trafficking for a Nigerian drug ring in Chicago. Now, this is not the first time that the contents of this document have been reported, but other stories that have tried to report this story have typically not gone into the detail needed to drive home the point that the man who would be Nigeria's next president is, in fact, a drug criminal.
Gang.
Tinubu's vast army of media shills and spokespeople have spun an endless web of narratives explaining why what is written in black and white is all some kind of mistake or mischaracterization or fake news. And one of the most common defenses is what you can see on your screen right now. Taking advantage of a Nigerian knowledge gap that typically misunderstands.
David is so condescending, man. Shout out to David O'Day for this documentary. But my goodness, are you condescending? Yeah, this was the article that came out trying to clear Tinubu's name as a response to the drug trafficking allegations. So he reads, he just has cleared Tinubu of Lagos State any involvement in any criminal activity. He has been arrested or wanted for the crime in the US. And yeah, let's see what David has to say about it.
How US federal investigations work. This kind of narrative has been floating around the Nigerian media space ever since Tinubu became Lagos State governor in 1999. Now, explaining the efficiency of indictments in the US, H. Michael Steinberg, founder of the Steinberg Colorado criminal defense law firm, says, "What are the chances for a not guilty verdict if a federally charged criminal defendant takes the case to trial? Statistically, not very good.
Yep.
Currently, federal prosecutors tout above a 95% conviction rate. This is primarily due to the fact that most cases never make it to trial. most defendants end up taking a plea bargain rather than risk a potentially much greater prison sentence which could be dealt them if they actually went to trial and lost. Now, what this means in other words is that America's feds are very good at their jobs, and the likelihood of a defendant in a federal case not being convicted is roughly 5%. Basically, not very good chances. So, could Tinubu perhaps have been part of that 5%? And if not, then what happened exactly that prevented a conviction? Among the dozens of documents in the case files, there's a sworn statement by IRS Special Agent Kevin Moss, who personally investigated Bola Tinubu's financial activities in the lead up to Lee Edwards' arrest. Here, we reunite with our old friends Abiodun Agbele and Adegboyega Moise Akonde as we pick our way through our hero's forbidden past.
Tinubu's clients.
Now, in the interest of keeping this brief, here's a Cliff Notes version. The U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, Michael Shepard, files a complaint for forfeiture of funds in bank accounts held by Tinubu as they hold proceeds of a heroin distribution organization headed by Adegboyega Moise Akonde.
So this document is basically saying that Tinubu is holding the money that they got from the proceeds of their business, which is crazy.
Tinubu's funds represent, and I quote, the proceeds of this operation or property involved in money laundering and the proceeds of narcotics trafficking.
So what Tinubu was basically doing as the accountant, well, he wasn't the one doing selling the drugs or distributing the drugs, but he was basically using his account to launder the money because he had the knowledge of how to clean the money. So, and you clean the money by putting those money in businesses or revenues or like cash flows that like that will cover up from the source of their income, transferring those monies until they look legit, until they look from their coming from a clean source and then going back to those individual accounts. So that was the job he was helping them facilitate so that they will not detect that this big money that's coming is from drugs. And then someone like Tinubu is also good for it because he's already an accountant with a good job. So the banks would not, especially at that point in time when there's somebody, a chartered accountant working in Mobile, working in Deloitte, and so yeah, they won't suspect that kind of person immediately of doing drugs than a random Nigerian boy that is not doing any business or that is not affiliated with any company.
Shepard requests that the court adjudge and decree that the funds should be forfeited to the United States. Special Agent Moss has analyzed financial documents including bank statements, money orders, cashier's checks, tax returns, and, I quote, wire transfers of huge amounts of cash generated by individuals who are believed to be members of this heroin distribution organization. And he reaches a professional conclusion that the accounts controlled by Tinubu, and I quote, were involved in financial transactions representing proceeds of drug trafficking. The investigation, which began in 1988, has identified Adegboyega Moise Akonde and his nephew Abiodun Agbele as key figures in the trade and distribution of heroin. The investigation identifies the third individual working with the duo to launder their money as a certain Bola Tinubu.
Jagaban! See how it's fresh. The mastermind behind the whole operations, man. You gotta respect, man. You gotta respect. You always need an accountant to show you the way.
In December 1989, Akonde takes Tinubu to a First Heritage Bank to open an individual money account. On the application, Tinubu gives his address as 7504 South Stewart Avenue, Chicago, which is the same address that
David, this Breaking Bad theme song you're using is it's killing me, man. I'm loving it.
Akonde uses as his heroin trap house. Special Agent Moss discovers that this is Oluremi.
This is the governor of Lagos State for 8 years. 8 years.
Tinubu has previously opened a joint account at the same bank with Audrey Akonde, wife of Adegboyega Moise Akonde. On January 4, 1990, just 5 days after opening the account, Tinubu deposits $80,000 into it.
Soft. 80K soft.
On a subsequent credit application dated January 6, 1990, Tinubu states that he is an employee of Mobil Oil Nigeria Limited with a total monthly salary of $2,400 and no other sources of income. He gives his address as 7504 South Stewart and lists Akonde as his cousin. Despite earning just $2,400 a month with no other known source of income, bank records from First Heritage Bank show that over the course of 1990 alone, Bola Tinubu goes on to deposit $661,000 into his individual money market account, followed by
Omo. Fraud money sweet oh. See how they're just calling these numbers. Chai!
by further $1,216,500 in 1991. And if you're paying attention, that is roughly equal to the $1.8 million he would later claim he made from Deloitte bonuses and salary deposits. Now, when Special Agent Moss interviews Mobil Oil reps about Tinubu's employment, they confirm that Tinubu works at Mobil Oil Nigeria as a treasurer in a capacity that does not involve transfer or custody of large amounts of money. Moss also discovers that Tinubu has failed to file US income tax returns since 1984. On January 10, 1992, a court order is obtained to freeze some of Tinubu's bank accounts containing the suspected proceeds of heroin trafficking in excess of $1.4 million. On January 13, 1992, during a telephone conversation from Nigeria with Special Agent Moss, Tinubu admits to the agent that he knows Akonde and that he had previously wire transferred $100,000 to Akonde's account in Houston. Further, Tinubu says that the $80,000 he deposited into the First Heritage Bank came from Akonde. Tinubu also reveals that he had additional bank accounts in Fairfax, Virginia and London, UK. Speaking over the telephone with Special Agent Moss on January 14, 1992, Tinubu admits that he knows Agbele and that he met him through Akonde. Tinubu admits that he has associated with Agbele and Akonde in the US and in Nigeria. In this conversation, Tinubu denies having any additional bank accounts in the US. On January 24, 1992, following a seizure warrant to freeze over $500,000 of unexplained funds in Tinubu's Citibank account, Citibank discovers two additional bank accounts controlled by Tinubu under the name of Compass Finance and Investment Company Limited. Citibank's account opening KYC records bring up a memorandum of association and articles of organization identifying Akonde and
Bro, so the link is even clear. So it didn't just, and this is where Tinubu was kind of a bit dumb as an accountant that's received its 850k bonus. If you know these are the drug dealers, why are you putting them as the directors of the company, of the bank accounts you're opening in their name? You should have used other people, paid those people, and use them as directors so that there will not be a direct link to. But this is 1990s and it was caught, and this is old news now. But and I shouldn't be teaching you people how to money launder, but yeah.
Agbele as directors of Compass Finance.
FBI, please don't open up. Don't. This is all hypothetical.
And an Investment Company Limited. Between January 30 and January 31, 1992, Tinubu suddenly does an about-face and tells US agents that he has never had any business association or financial relationship with Agbele or Akonde. This statement directly contradicts his earlier statements and the documentation from Citibank and First Heritage Bank. Special Agent Moss concludes in his submission that based upon this evidence, there is probable cause to believe that a number of Tinubu's accounts are involved in narcotics transactions. The court agrees and orders the forfeiture on August 18, 1993. Tinubu opts to fight the case, claiming that the money is legitimate and it belongs to one Kafaru Tinubu and his surrogate mother Alaja Habibat Mogaji. Ultimately, he enters into a settlement with the US government on September 15, 1993, agreeing to forfeit $460,000 of the heroin trafficking proceeds to the US government. The balance of roughly $1 million is released to him. Now, why did the US authorities adopt this approach instead of going the whole hog and insisting on litigation so as to obtain the full amount? The US just
because they can't. If they press too much, then they can just file for it. Most of the time, why they would choose to take part of the money and settle it is because they don't want to lose all of the money, because they know that they are working with an international citizen. So most of the time, if the person you are investigating is from another country, if you press them too much, they will just go to their country and you ban them from your country, and they'll be like, okay, fine, ban me from your country. I'm going to live in. There are millions of other countries and cities I can visit that are not in your country. So in that situation, it's kind of a lose-lose situation. So what they would rather do is that they would rather take settlement, so at least they don't lose all of the money if they cannot jail you directly. Because for them to jail you, most of the time your country has to excommunicate you. That they have to extradite you to that I've forgotten, is that the word? Doesn't sound right in my head. But yeah, if you're not from their country, they cannot hold you for their laws without your country's permissions. So most of the time they will have to they will rather come to some form of settlement so that they can at least get something from all the money you stole. And if they just jail you directly too, then they can jail you directly, and then you can send the money back to your family, and whenever they release you from jail, you can go back to the money. So it's always a very tricky one when approaching these drug cases.
Justice Department's guidelines for asset settlements to cases provides the answer to this in plain English. Settlements to forfeit property are encouraged to conserve the resources of both the United States and claimants in situations where justice will be served.
Yeah.
In any case, the ascent of General Abacha and his rabid anti-American posturing very quickly led to a shift in US government priorities.
Abacha, the goat. Man, I can't imagine what it must have been like to live under Abacha, man. I'm not old enough. I think I was in my mom's belly when Abacha was ruling Nigeria. But I heard so much terrible stuff about this guy and how he terrorized the whole country. Our country's Hitler. But yeah, man, this guy it looks like the embodiment of terror. He just looks like that guy that you can't mess with.
Rabid anti-American posturing
Bring back dictatorship.
very quickly led to a shift in US government priorities. Anyone who was on board with Nadeko and promoting democracy in the face of Abacha's fascism suddenly became an ally, even if just a few years before they had contributed to a heroin epidemic on the streets of Chicago. As anyone with some knowledge of the CIA contract,
So Tinubu basically positioned himself as a freedom fighter against Abacha. So because he positioned himself as a freedom fighter against Abacha by leading the Nadeko movement, he kind of became an ally to the US, because the US that time they were still doing their crusade of democracy around the world.
crack cocaine affair would know, even Uncle Sam can turn a blind eye to drug dealers when they are working in his interests. Also remember, it was the 1990s. The 90s were a crazy time.
Crazy
At the time when Tinubu informed the US authorities that he was a lowly treasurer at Mobile, Nigeria on $2,400 a month, after having apparently been the world's most generously rewarded junior Deloitte accountant.
The baddest accountant you've ever seen.
He was doing some decidedly non-lowly things in the background. Now, while working on this story,
Say what you want about Tinubu, yeah, but his drip is consistent. This is signature heart drip is consistent. And what is it about corrupt people and dictators and I don't know, all these tyrants? Why do they always have drip? Like, if you look at Trump, man is consistent with his red tie, red what do you call it? Fucking handkerchief in the pocket. I can't remember what they call that shit. But why do all these guys always have their consistent swag? Like, see Tinubu with his consistent like hat with the symbol. All of this from the 90s, man. It hasn't changed. Crazy.
some decidedly non-lowly things in the background. Now, while working on this story, a bit of
In fact, I'm voting Tinubu over Obi just because of the drip.
Research across US land registries threw up a few pearlers like this one from the Land Records Department at Prince George's County in Maryland. Now, on January 20, 1992, barely 10 days after IRS Special Agent Moss made first contact with Tinubu via telephone, Tinubu purchased a 4-bedroom, 3,016 square foot home at 10111 Limestone Court, Potomac, Maryland, for the miserly sum of $450,000, which he paid in full and upfront, by the way. No
Cash! How much? How much was that?
10111 Limestone Court, Potomac,
450k.
Maryland, for the miserly sum of $450,000.
450,000 cash. And this was before politics. This was before he became who he is now. I can't imagine the amount of money this guy has touched in his lifetime, bro. I can't imagine the amount of $450,000 back in the 90s from accounting.
Which he paid in full and upfront, by the way, no mortgage. Now, for reference, this is what this property looks like. This was about
Okay, not in the 90s, he just did that now. I'm loving the Breaking Bad
10
reference.
days before he did his about-face to Agent Moss, denying having had any financial relationship with his heroin trafficking buddies, Agbele and Akonde. Now, the obvious question raised here is one about timing. Was Tinubu attempting to hide money from US authorities by parking it in real estate once he realized that they were onto him? Where did the funds to carry out this transaction even come from at a time when his accounts were being frozen right, left, and center?
Oh, okay, this was in the 90s, yeah, correct.
Now, more real estate record searches raise even more questions about several other parts of the known Tinubu story, including his self-characterization as a bedraggled hero of the
Look at my guy in the 90s, so young, so full of crime and fraud, yet so young and innocent. Is that Fashola?
democratic struggle and the Nadeko movement under General Sani Abacha. Now, in the interview mentioned earlier, he claimed that following Abacha's coup and his eventual exit from Nigeria, that he was forced to live almost like a pauper after the Nigerian government stripped him of all that he had. Describing his weary but triumphant return home from exile, he said, "I came home with 3 pairs of trousers and 3 jackets. Meanwhile, I had no Victoria Island home to return to. It had been taken over by Abacha. They dispossessed me of the house as well as my office on Saka Tinubu Street, my vehicles and everything else I owned. They claimed they found bombs in it and dispossessed me of it. I was totally cleaned out. I had only 5 shirts, the £2,000 and the jackets." And yet, the Prince George's County Land Records Department will beg to differ, because here was our tragic, impoverished hero of the Nadeko struggle, casually dropping the minor sum of $147,000 in 1995 for a 3-bedroom, 1,668 square foot home at 12625 Hillmead Station Drive, Prince George's County, Maryland. He would go on to trouser a tidy $13,000 in profit when he sold it on just 3 years later. He was at it again in 1997, putting down the modest sum of $491,465 on a 4,558 square foot property at 1708 Parkside Drive, Mitchellville, Maryland. Again, all cash, no mortgage. He'll go on to sell this property in December 2018
Man's out here paying for these houses in cash, man.
for $700,000. What is more, these weird transactions did not end in 1999 or stop with our hero and his wife. Even their 2 youngest children, Habibat Oyindamola Tinubu and Zainab Abisola Tinubu, got
Guys, would you smash? Would you smash? Let's be honest. Let's tell ourselves the truth. Would you smash Tinubu's daughter? Smash or pass? Answer me, come on. It's just a question. Smash or pass?
gotten on the act fairly recently. Aged 32 and 30
You see, this is why this guy is my namesake. This is come on. You deserve a. Wow, we're risking it for the bag though. Don't worry about the generational curses that will follow me after. Cover the face with the pillow, man. But for real though, I don't want to be smashing and be seeing Tinubu though. I don't know if I can be smashing and be seeing Tinubu. I'm not sure, man. I mean, she has a bit of Oluremi's genes. Oluremi is pretty, but especially the taller one. Hey. I mean, all women are queens at the end of the day. All women are queens. Please. Cover the face with the pillow. That's hilarious.
Respectively, two of the three youngest members of Bola Tinubu's family have managed to escape scrutiny, mostly because
she even got the smile of the man too. Ay.
Freedom of Information Act in Nigeria is still much more aspiration than fact. Not so in
It'll be so you won't smash. Stop lying, bro.
America, where a plethora of services can pull up
You know you smash.
all kinds of records, including birthdays, criminal convictions.
By the time she sends you 100K for dick allowance, I'm sure you change that statement. Just a small 100K for the inconvenience of smashing. I'm sure you change your mind. $100K or pounds. You think we're talking naira here? This is the daughter of Tinubu, Oluremi and Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Better put some respect on her name.
And real estate transactions, especially real estate transactions.
Bro, for real, one of those properties in Ikoyi. That was also bang, man. I'll give her a solid 3 rounds for that.
Such as the ones where a 25-year-old with no known employment or source of income was able to pay $2,150,000 in 2014 for a deluxe condo at 55 Berry Street, Brooklyn, New York.
Bro.
Full and upfront.
Look at that. Look at this apartment, bro. Hey, God. I will never be broke in my life.
5 Berry Street, Brooklyn, New York. Full and upfront cash payment again, no mortgage. Or real estate transactions where the 25-year-old's 22-year-old sister, who was fresh out of music school with no known source of income, was able
She went to study music. Of course. Another billionaire's daughter went to study music, of course.
to pay $2,400,000
Ooh, is she gonna be a musician or is she gonna end up like a DJ copy?
in cash.
But it's crazy though. Okay, fine. If you will not be if you won't smash, obviously most of us here won't smash. I know most of us here won't date them. But could you be friends with someone like a Tinubu's daughter or someone like a Tinubu's son, knowing the history of the father? Or would you take them for who they are?
To buy a deluxe apartment at 255 Hudson Street, New York, using the 1-inch thick fig leaf that was a company that she herself owned. It appears that Bola Tinubu's good fortune could be genetically transmitted. I mean, what are the odds that the only junior accountant in the world to earn an $850,000 bonus on a single engagement,
The baddest accountant ever lived,
will turn out to have children who can buy luxury real estate in New York for millions of dollars while being unemployed with no known source of income?
Tony, are you gonna be a sellout live on stream? Bro, how can you be friends with these people knowing all they have done against you and your people? Are you not just rewarding the behavior of the parents by being friends with these people? I've always, because I know some politicians' children in real life, and even me to a degree, I'm a politician's son. My dad, even though my dad does not assume to any, but he participates heavily in politics. And I know some politicians' children, especially some politicians that have done some unscrupulous activities, I'll say that. And I've always debated myself like, what role am I playing here? Being a friend to this person, like, am I doing the right thing by like being this person's friend? One part of you wants to treat them like who they are and wants to separate them from their parents, and really wants to kind of show, especially because most of the time when you find out they are politicians' children, like when you find out who they are, is after you've known their personalities. So it's always very tricky in terms of like discarding them as friends after that based on your ideology. And then it now brings into the wider scope, like, can you be friends with people that you disagree ideologically wise, or you disagree with the way they live their life, or you disagree in terms of who they also associate with? And then that brings into the question of cancel culture. Is cancel culture, should it be a thing? Should we ostracize people because of their... At the end of the day, these people are kids, 25 and 22 years old. They don't really, even though they've benefited from the corruption the man has done, but they are not really to blame. They're just kids. I think what you said is the correct thing. It depends on how self-aware they are. Are they self-aware of the fact that their parents are corrupt? Are they perpetuating that corruption? Because some of these kids start running their father's businesses and running their father's political campaigns. Like you can see Donald Trump Jr. and Donald. I'm not saying Donald Trump is corrupt, but it's just an example of that. So even Davido is friends with Sheyi Tinubu, yeah, but is he friends with Sheyi Tinubu? I didn't know about that, but yeah, as Davido, I can't judge Davido for who he wants to be friends not friends with, but I'm saying as Davido, if you are Davido, should you be friends with that kind of person? And even Davido said, Davido is the son of another man that's a political godfather in the country. So it's a tough one. It's a tough debate still.
Income. Not great chances, but here we are. Now, in the course of researching this story, a name that kept coming...
Tony, message me on wherever you saw this platform. I want to know who you are directly. Message me. I really appreciate your participation in the chat.
Up repeatedly as a comparison to Nigeria's Teflon Ashiwaju was a certain Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, MKO Abiola.
MKO!
And when the Daily Beast took a stab at this story a few years ago, a tantalizing hint was mentioned in passing about an unimaginable parallel between 1993 and 2023. I reached out to everyone I could think of with some knowledge of the affair. Most declined to speak, citing some unspoken concerns. Only Professor Gary K. Bush, a notable African political risk analyst and one-time professor of African studies at the University of Hawaii, agreed to say his piece. His lengthy comment went as follows. The Nigerian military on the council were adamant that the Babangida government should never allow Abiola to run for office, and told President Babangida so during the aborted runoff primaries before the election. The basis for their concern about Abiola was the information...
Hey, Tony, you deserve a bomb. Don DeMarco for this comment. Been a fan since the drink show. All the man is my cousin. That's what I love to see, man. That's so you supported Booze Lovers Guide. That's way back, man. Appreciate. Ozeme is my cousin. That's after. That was good times, man. That was good times. Bring back the short talk crew, the short crew. Don't worry, soon come. When I come to Nigeria, I give you my shoot an episode.
And documentation being circulated in Washington, London, and Lagos of Abiola's alleged ties to the drugs business. The US in particular had expressed its strong opposition to IBB about the candidacy of Abiola as president, not because of his politics or allegations of corruption, but rather for the evidence they felt was correct about Abiola's alleged drugs connections. This issue was raised in the military council on 3 occasions, and Babangida...
So basically, I say MKO. MKO. But MKO basically, like, based on what this guy is saying, was also involved in this drug business. And growing up, I always hear this MKO hype. like MKO Abiola, the first politically elected president, the only good man. Oh, if MKO won, Nigeria would have been so good. I always used to hear this hype about MKO. And I won't lie, even as a kid, my bullshit meters were always ringing. Like my bullshit senses were like, all the corrupt people that we've had. And this guy is the only one that would not have been corrupt. That's number one. Number two, if he was this rich and he was this philanthropic, he was always giving people money. Where did he get this money from in this same Nigeria? And then what? Anytime I used to ask, what was MKO's source of wealth? Everybody would tell me business. And I was like, what business will allow you to be dashing money the way MKO was dashing money? And apparently what David is alleging to in this documentary is that MKO was also part of the drug business. And if he was part of the drug business, then it will make a lot of sense in terms of where he got the money to fund such a political campaign. Because I think MKO to date are one of the best political campaigns ever in terms of having the people's backing and having the people's support. So, yeah, let's see what David has to say about it.
I was warned. He refused to take a decision until it was almost too late.
So, but apparently, Babangida was warned about MKO's ties with the drug cartels, and it was because Babangida ended up annulling the election, the first free and fair election we had. Babangida ended up annulling it. So this documentary is saying that he was already being informed about MKO's nefarious activities. They said MKO made a bank branch manager in the UK his personal assistant. It was that rich. I know MKO was rich, but my situation was, where did he get the money from? What did MKO do to become that rich? Like, I think MKO, he was so fucking rich. He had Nigeria. He was going to save Nigeria. But my whole problem was, where did he get that money from? What business did he create that was making him so much money that is not alive today? Okay, if he was that rich, why did his death? Imagine Dangote died today, for example. Dangote PLC will still be operating. But MKO, if he was that rich and he died, where are his businesses today to show for this wealth? If they were not shady businesses, if the sources of those businesses were not shady. I'm not accusing him of anything, but I'm only saying something is not right. And that's what David is trying to get into here in this election.
US Ambassador Lannon Walker and the British consul visited IBB and warned him about Abiola, but Babangida dithered, which made the impact worse as the polling had begun. When he finally decided to intervene and stop the election, he precipitated the crisis of June 12th. His friends in the military supported him but felt let down by IBB's lack of decisiveness. While there was consternation in Nigeria about the ouster of Abiola, the major international partners of Nigeria were not upset or concerned because they knew what the reasons were for the development. So was the 1993 election annulled because of MK Abiola's alleged drug ties? Bola Tinubu, for one, would certainly hope not. Not only does he have very real and proven ties to the drug trade, in addition to explicitly positioning himself as the assumed successor to MKO as the political leader of Nigeria's Yoruba ethnic group, but he has also picked a fellow Muslim as a running mate ahead of next year.
Like, this shit was wild, man. Like, the audacity of Tinubu to pick another Muslim on his ticket was when I was like, this guy does not even rate Nigerians. Like, he does not. Even Buhari, ex-military dictator, still had the graciousness to pick a Christian. But Tinubu was like, nope, I need my northern vote. I don't care. I have the south on lock, even though I'm a Muslim. We're going to pick a Muslim northerner. Still, Obi picked the Christian northerner, someone that has sense. But Tinubu was like, I don't care about Nigerians, what you guys want to do. I'm picking a fellow Muslim that is a northerner. Okay, all.
Year's election. The only other electoral frontrunner in Nigeria's history to do that was, no prizes for guessing, that guy.
MK also picked a Muslim ticket.
Still, if anyone can manage to avoid having this particular bolt of lightning strike twice, it could well be Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the luckiest politician.
And this is why people always shit on Christianity sometimes, and it's a pity because I do not think a Christian can get away with picking a Christian ticket in Nigeria. The streets would hear it. I don't think a Christian can get away with it, but Muslims can do it. What does that say about Christianity in terms of what we tolerate and what we allow?
In Africa. I mean, when he needed money to launch a political career in the 90s, he apparently had $1.8 million saved up from bonuses and salary payments as a junior accountant at Deloitte, which obviously was very handy. When his chosen successor as Lagos State Governor faced a near certain electoral defeat in 2007, the more popular frontrunner coincidentally turned up dead inside his bedroom in Dolphin Estate, Ikoyi.
This is so tragic, man. This is real life Breaking Bad, real life Narcos.
One of the safest neighborhoods in Nigeria. He had been strangled to death. Naturally, the chosen successor then won the election, which was a happy coincidence. When he backed a candidate against the incumbent,
It's still wild that everybody just let that shit slide. There was no investigation. There was no, there was clear motive. They were supposed to even arrest Fashola and Tinubu first. Now wait first, because of the motive is too clear. Let's hold on. Let's cancel the election for now. A major political candidate cannot just die like that with the election days before the election, and we just continue like that.
when president in 2015, his good friend Gilbert Chaguri, the former kleptomaniac dictator's bagman, happened to have an excellent relationship with US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And she just happened to ignore recommendations from the State Department and US intelligence services to proscribe Boko Haram as a foreign terrorist organization, which effectively allowed it to gain critical mass and make the then government of the day even more popular. Naturally, his candidate duly won the election. Very lucky guy. When a former business partner, Dapo Akpara, took him to court,
It's radiating grace and luck. He's giving. He's giving too much luck.
over financial impropriety and money laundering at Alpha Beta Consultants, which is basically his little
Bro, we've not even talked about ABC, man. We've not even talked about toll gates and the money he made from toll gates. The money he still makes from advertising.
to the Lagos State government's treasury. The court became the
The money he still makes from area boys.
first court in the history of Lagos State to burn to ashes and have all its files destroyed. The case was never refiled and it's currently being settled out of court, which is, of course, absolutely coincidental and very regrettable. The 1990s were a crazy time, and the 2020s are even crazier.
Shout out to you, man. Shout out to David, man. This was a crazy documentary.